Talk about it, y'all. What up? Dr. Pinesett here. It's been a minute since we went live, but today's a good day and you need to come back and do some live stuff because affirmative action just took a hit in the Supreme Court. And I think it's very important we have a discussion about it. And as always, we can't stop at a superficial discussion because there's a lot of layers to things. And so tonight we're going to get into it. We're going to dive deep into it. So you guys join me. I'm live on YouTube right now. So get over to my YouTube channel and let's talk about affirmative action. What does it mean? How do you guys feel about it? When you guys saw that decision come down, was it an afterthought? What do we think about this affirmative action decision and what it means for you guys as students? I'll tell you what it really means, right? If you guys did not hear what happened, the Supreme Court essentially said that it was unethical. It was not legal. It was against the 14th Amendment to consider race in any admissions decision, particularly amongst two schools. But really, we understand what that means. It establishes a precedent and legal precedent, so you can apply it to all sorts of areas where you might want to consider race in deciding something. And I think it's a terrible, terrible decision. And the reason I think it's so bad, and people can argue about it one way or the other way, but the point is, affirmative action policies are not discriminatory towards non-minorities. And what they are, though, is beneficial to minorities. And it's very important to understand that the two are not mutually, they don't have to be the same. So you don't have to benefit minorities and also hurt non-minorities at the same time. It's not the same equation. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? And in this scenario, the reason to boil the whole argument down to something very simple. The whole reason we need affirmative action, the whole reason it's a bad decision today, is because study after study after study has shown repeatedly, over and over and over again, that there is negative bias towards people of color in admissions. Meaning that because 90% of all the decision makers at these levels are non-minorities, that they have, whether it's subconscious, whether it's conscious, they have a bias against minorities, a negative bias. Like, ooh, I don't like that dark skin. That's what they think inside. Whether they, really, they want to outwardly express that, they have that sensation inside, like, ooh, that darkness is scary to me, right? And so they feel that inside, so there's a negative bias that exists at baseline, that's irrefutable, and it's not the individual, it's the collective, right? We're looking at overall data that supports admissions as a whole is negatively biased against people of color. So if we're saying that is the scenario, that there's a negative bias against minorities, there must be a mechanism to reduce the impact of that negative bias in admissions. And what affirmative action considerations do is it forces people who would have a bias, whether it's conscious or unconscious, subconscious, to examine things from the perspective of race and check themselves and say, wait a minute, am I letting my bias get here? I need to consider that there are factors involved here. I need to look at this not in a negative light. I need to look at this in a different way. And it forces them to consider all things that they may not consider in the admissions process. So what affirmative action seeks to do is not to give minorities an advantage, not to give non-minorities a disadvantage, but it seeks to level the playing field, to take what was a negative, balance it out with some positive, and make it neutral. Does that make sense to everybody? And someone just commented, we need more black people on AdComs, but that's the problem, is who gets to decide who's on the admissions committee? Who gets to decide is the dean of the medical school? Who gets to decide who's in faculty leadership positions? It's the same place everywhere. Does everybody understand what this is the point, is you can't say we need more diversity, we need people in leadership, but if you don't create opportunities for them, and the easiest example of this to see is in sports. I'm going to say something that may sound weird to people. Black people, American blacks, me, black people who have had a long history here in America, come from a lineage of American slavery. We must understand that these said people were literally bred like you would breed animals to be physically more gifted so they could work and generate labor and productivity for their slave owners. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? So at baseline, there's a difference in the athletic prowess for many, not all, again, population statistics, for black people. You look at the NFL, you look at the NBA, it's predominantly what? Black people. But then when you look at the leadership ranks, owners of teams, coaches, trainers, all the people associated around basketball, the dearth of black people shows you the strength of negative bias against minorities. Because how can you have leagues that are 75, 85% black, yet you look at the coaching ranks, and the NFL I think only has one, maybe two black coaches right now? And so it's not a matter of, you know what I mean, saying you have to interview, right? The NFL has the Rooney Rule. You have to interview a black candidate. Interviewing that black candidate doesn't hurt the white candidates. There's plenty of spots available for them. But it creates an opportunity for a black person to sit in a room with people that otherwise wouldn't sit with them. And this is what affirmative action does in higher education, is it makes people take a second look and say, wait a minute. And it seeks to level the playing field. And for people who are saying that they shouldn't consider race in admissions, that we don't need that we all are equal and bias and blah, 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 blah. I'm going to give you guys another parallel example. Are we ready? Everybody with me? If you're with me right now, like this video, let me know you're glad to see me back and talking about this issue right now as this stuff goes down, live action. Who else is seeing this? Who else is enjoying this conversation? Who else says, hey, Dr. Pinesett, keep talking about what you're talking about. Keep spitting the truth. Okay? I appreciate that, y'all that like the video. Thank you. The parallel to this is hate crime legislation. So if every person is guaranteed under our Constitution to be free and protected from discriminatory practices and bias and discrimination, if everyone is supposed to be protected from that, why do we need hate crime legislation? We need it because, right? And I actually looked this up so I can make sure I give it to you guys the right way. The alternate name for hate crime legislation, according to .gov, right? Our Department of Justice, .gov, is bias mediated crimes. So these are crimes that are committed on the basis of bias. And so what our government system is saying, listen, people have enough bias in their heart that they will do harm to other people. Even though there's a law in place that you can't hurt other people, they will do it because their hate is so strong in their heart. Their discontentment is so strong in their heart. It's not enough we have a law against assault. We need to add on top of that a law against bias in crimes. So if you commit a crime because you're biased against someone, we have to add that legislation to add an additional deterrent to people committing these crimes. But this is the same parallel. We have a law against assault. But if we look at it, we have populations that are at risk at an even greater level of being assaulted. So we have to protect them and give them additional protections and insist it to make it even. Does everybody understand what we're saying? So now when we're talking about affirmative action, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, listen, even despite saying you can't discriminate against people, people still have bias. It is what it is. Racist exists, right? And it's not overtly like, oh, I hate black people, but it's like, I just don't know black people. In my freshman dorm, there's a guy who hated my black ass. And I was like, what is our problem? What is our beef? What is going on? And we got into it and we really broke it down. He didn't even know any black people, but he had heard a bad story from a friend about a black guy who did something bad to him. And that was his only exposure to black people. He didn't know, but he comes from a lineage of bias. He comes from around people he doesn't know anything about black people. And that's the problem, that's the predicament. White people and non-minority people have had a head start. And so they're in the leadership positions. They're in these universities, right? Black people couldn't get a fair shake, so we had to have HBCUs, right? All this, we had to have laws that say, listen, give these people an opportunity. If we look at the civil rights movement, that's the 60s, y'all. That's 60 years ago. There are people, like people's grandparents. Close your eyes right now. Your grandparents were born. Your grandparents were born in a time where black people were less than. Think about that. Where black people didn't have equal opportunities for freedom, for education, for opportunities of advancement. That's crazy to think about when you think about it. So to say that we no longer need affirmative action laws in place to say, listen, you know what? It's okay if you want to consider race, if you want to seek diversity, if you're serious about giving minorities an opportunity, hey, go ahead and consider it if you want to. I'm not saying you have to, but if you want to, you have the option. Today's ruling takes that option off the table. And the bigger problem with this, it's not even affirmative action in higher education, because people are missing the boat. This is a judgment against affirmative action in admissions at the higher education level. But the problem is this is going to cause far-reaching impact across other areas. If we stick for a second with just higher education and we look at just higher education, the number one thing that came to my mind immediately was like, damn, you know what's going to go away? What the next thing to be challenged is minority scholarships. Dang. Minority scholarships. And for people who say, well, there shouldn't be minority scholarships, it should be scholarships. But as someone who went to, right, the West Coast Ivy, Stanford, went to a private school, I can tell you there's plenty of scholarships for legacies. One of the things I'm most proud about going to Stanford, one of the reasons I chose Stanford was because I knew, hey, the moment I go to Stanford and I graduate, my kids are legacy. I talk about it all the time. Tell my wife, Shannon, I said, man, I'm so proud. My kids are gonna be legacy. I send that alumni check with pride every month because I'm paying for my kids to have an advantage in admissions. I'm paying for them to have access to a pool of funding and so forth at that university that they otherwise wouldn't have. But for many students, they don't have that legacy. I didn't have that legacy. And so to have the opportunity to get a minority scholarship, maybe their only chance to go to that university. Because if we look at the data, population level, not the individual, right? Minorities tend to be more socioeconomically disadvantaged. It's not all cases. And this is something I get into when I meet with deans and medical admissions people. I say we have to separate racial and diversity pushes with disadvantaged student pushes because they're not synonymous. There is we want to increase diversity and there is we want to increase opportunities for disadvantaged students. And there's overlap, but there's also a distinction. And so one of the arguments I make with medical schools is when you accidentally confuse diversity and disadvantage, you are doing everyone a disservice. Because then when people see a student who is black, they assume that they are what? Disadvantaged. When there are plenty of black advantaged people. Additionally, you can't claim as an admissions department that you're creating opportunities for disadvantaged students just because you're like, oh, we got a bunch of black students. But if you look at the data for some of these universities, and this is what I've done with schools, I said, look at the black people you admitted. Their doctors are, their parents are lawyers and doctors and so forth. So you're not really hitting the disadvantage thing. It's not the same. There's two separate pools. But if we look at this and we say to ourselves, those scholarships are going to disproportionately now be taken away, that is a bad look, y'all. Beyond scholarships, how about early exposure programs? How about some of the programs that I was involved in as a mentor, as a teacher, as a director, right? Because I served as the director of the California Alliance for Minority Participation, their Summer Science Academy. All these opportunities that create exposure and opportunities and pathways for minorities to advance themselves, not on the shoulders of someone else, but let's create a space, a safe space for these minority students to see other students like them, to have curriculum that's tailored to their experience. Like, hey, listen, you're gonna be the only black face on this campus. There's gonna be 3 of y'all. Now you've seen the other 2 stick together. You don't have to feel alone. Because I can tell you, being one of the few black faces at UC Irvine, home of the ferocious anteaters, was very intimidating to me as a young person. Like, damn, nobody looks like me. Asian, white, Asian, white. That can play games with your head. And the flip side of that, I'll challenge people who are not a minority. How do you feel in a room full of minorities? If it was all black people in here and you're the only white person, how would you feel? It doesn't make you racist to say, you know what, I'd feel like the odd man out. I'd feel out of place. So imagine how the minority feels if you don't create opportunities and safe spaces and safe havens. Because that camp office, that same place, the California, it was a safe space for black people to come together, for Hispanic people, for people of color to come together and say, listen, I'm not the only dark-skinned person around here. Thank you. I feel like I can take off my protective coating and I can just be me and I can relax and I can kick back. Right? We take away those programs. We take away the opportunities of students who may have never get on an Ivy League campus to go and participate in a summer minority research program, a summer shadowing program, all these things, because they don't have the connect. They don't have a doctor in their family. They don't have a PhD in their family. They don't have a professor in their family that they can go and reach out to and say, hey, can I get a research opportunity? Can I get a shadowing opportunity? They don't have that in their family, so we have to create a pathway for it. Right? And someone's mentioning HBCUs, and you guys know, you guys have seen my videos. I'm not a big fan of HBCUs, and it's for this reason. It's for this reason, y'all. Because if we want to create an infrastructure where black people and students of color can thrive in all environments, have limitless opportunities, we have to diversify these other universities that aren't HBCUs. Because if we aren't diversifying, if we aren't creating exposure to this darkness, if we aren't creating dark excellence in these places, then all that's left is HBCUs. And what is that, y'all? That be segregation, right? And that's my whole thing is like, why would I actively segregate myself? I want to not only integrate, I want to elevate. I want to take over. I want to be the leader of that white campus. I want to be the black cherry on that white sundae. That's where what that should be the objective. Like Barack Obama, right? I don't know about everybody, but for me, that was a huge moment. A black gosh darn president, never would have thought it, but we got one. But would it be the same if he was the right? He was the president of he was the congressional black caucus leader? Yeah, the black caucus. No, I want him to be everybody's president, not just the black people's president, everybody's president. That's powerful. That's what this is about, y'all, is creating opportunities globally, universally. That's what we're trying to do. Okay? Everybody still with me? Like the video right now. Let me know. The other thing, and this is where we have to recognize, is that a foot in the door is different than a step up. And this is where people get it wrong. I see all these arguments and saying, oh, you're discriminating against us Asians because, you know, we have greater scores, blah, blah, blah. A foot in the door is not the same thing as a leg up. When we talk about affirmative action and admissions, that's one thing. But the thing we just talked about, we kind of got into it earlier, is leadership. We talked about we need more minorities on adcoms. We need more minority deans. We need more minority freaking professors. We need more. There are none. Right? In my residency program, there were zero, count them, zero black anesthesiologists. Guess how many black attending surgeons there were? This is UCSD. Guess how many black attending surgeons there were? Zero. That's facts. Zero. The point here is, and this is literally, I'm in these meetings and they're like, yeah, we're trying to like, Andre, you are heavy into diversity. You always are talking about some diversity stuff. We're trying to increase the diversity here at UCSD amongst our medical faculty. We think part of the problem is they don't feel comfortable here because we don't have enough other people of color. And I said, yeah, you could make that argument. But the real thing is you have to look at the pool of people. If you only have 1 to 2 black residents, what are the odds that, like, if you look at the odds, okay, so you have 2 black people and then you have 20 white people. If half the white people say, listen, I'm from this other state and I want to go back there, you still have 10 white people to make faculty. But if you have 2 black people and half of them decide to go back to their state, you only have 1 person to make faculty. So it's the law of averages of if you don't have enough people in the pipeline, they cannot become leaders. But the extension of this is that there are, beyond admissions, is there are numerous programs in place because they know there aren't enough minorities in leadership. There are leadership opportunities programs for minorities. There are leadership opportunities programs for minorities where you have early faculty mentorship. You have meetings where you can discuss things that happen. Like, oh, you know what? This was some discriminatory stuff that happened. This is a safe space where I can discuss it amongst peers and say, listen, that person was rude to me and I felt like it was related to me being black. Where we can say things like all these pipelines that create opportunities to build a pipeline, not just in, but up. To say, no, it's not enough to be in. We want to be leaders. We want to be at the head of the class. We want to be the decision maker. And when you attack affirmative action at the admissions level, it's not a small thing because what you're really doing is open up the can of worms to attack it at all levels. How about minority management programs? Right? You look at all the programs that are designed to create, we talked about having people on AdComs. This is the opportunity we're trying to create. But you're not just looking at admission. This is a precedent to say, listen, in any decision that you make ever, we cannot look at race in a positive way. So if we can't look at it in a positive way, what's the only way left to look at it? A negative way. And the last thing I'll end with, and actually, no, I'm going to keep going. But I'm going to make this point, and then I'll end with one final point. Even with the ability, not everyone uses affirmative action, right? Everyone knows that the public schools in California got rid of their affirmative action stuff a while ago. But private institutions still have it, and other institutions still have their affirmative action they use for admissions. Even with affirmative action in place at some schools, there has still been little to no improvement in the diversity, in the opportunities for minorities in higher education. And it's one of the greatest failings of our system is that what we've known for forever, and I'm gonna take it back. Can we take it back for a second? One of the core tenets of slave owners towards their slaves was not to allow them to become educated, to not teach them to read, to not allow them to congregate and to teach each other and to share heritage and stories and all these kind of things, because through education, through knowledge, through the ability to obtain knowledge comes what, y'all? Opportunity, comes power, comes options. And so the way to keep a man physically enslaved is to keep him mentally enslaved. And so if we fail to create educational opportunities for minorities, what are we doing, y'all? We're putting a cap, a limitation on what minorities can attain in these here United States in this year, 2023. And that's what this law does, is it says, oh, you know what? Your best shot at educational attainment, and again, you guys can look this up, but all the studies show that every other thing we try to do to increase diversity, increase opportunities, it makes no difference. The only way that we can increase diversity, even nudge it the slight bit we have, is to say you must consider these students of color. So if we're pulling that back, we're going to reduce the number of educational opportunities that are available to these minorities, and therefore we will have what, y'all? a wider gap than already exists. It'll be a perpetuation, a reinstatement of the head start that non-minorities have had in this here United States. And if we can't have that conversation and talk about that, man, it's a problem. And as Sam just said, the thing about this is this decision today is saying it's not affirmative action wasn't mandated. Previously, schools could consider race. It was an option. It was one factor they could add to their stew of considerations. It wasn't the only factor. It was one of hundreds of factors, dozens of factors. But with this ruling, they're saying you schools have to remove that ingredient from your stew. And as I was just saying, the studies have shown that that ingredient is crucial, is essential, is necessary if we are to create diversity and opportunity. And so I find that it's a difficult day. With that being said, guys, right? We are a people and a channel of optimism. When you guys come here, what do you guys come here for? Why do you guys come to watch me, to watch Dr. Pinesett on your screen? What brings you back to this channel? Why are you subscribed to my YouTube channel? Why do you watch my podcast? Why are you in my courses? What is it all about? What do you come here to get? And as you guys comment that in the box, type it in the box. And while you do that, what I hope you come here for, what I hope you come here for, and what you understand and what I'm trying to deliver, there's nothing else I'm interested in, is I'm interested in being a voice of positivity. Meaning, when you feel hopeless, I hope to give you hope. And the way that I believe hope is given is not through false, empty air, oh, be all you can be, and hopes and whips and dreams and whatever. It's through tangible productivity. And so I bring you this positivity, this upliftment, this encouragement, this empowerment. And I do it through means of productivity and specificity, and bringing my expertise to you in doing things efficiently, doing things well, and succeeding in higher education. I'm going to show you the way. And so I'm always here to teach, right? I can't just be like, oh yeah, go be great. I have to teach. And so I hope that as you guys come to this channel and I start coming back and being on social media more, right? I've been on social media. I've been working with my students still. I've been teaching, but I've been on social media. But I hope that you guys can grasp that what I'm about is positivity and productivity. So I can't leave it on a negative note, because even though today sucks, it's bad. The reality is, and what we have to recognize is, and what we should take from today is what I always say to students, right? What do I always say? What's our calling card? No excuses, just dominate. And the reason that expression, those 4 words, is the war cry, is so powerful, I believe it so deeply, is because if that is our mindset, if that is our mantra, if that is our outlook, then we understand that nothing can stop us if we stay determined. Won't be perfect, may not be pretty. But if we tell ourselves that every single negative thing out there, every single roadblock, every single obstacle, every single hurdle, every single hater, everything out there is just an excuse to keep us from being our greatness, and we don't accept no excuses, the only thing that's left is domination. And if you are a student of color and you're disheartened by this, recognize that you have at this very moment all the same opportunities you had yesterday. And the key thing for you now is to recognize what I'm always saying. The responsibility to succeed is yours and yours alone. I was literally earlier today filming my Dominate Med School course, right? And one of the things I talked about was I said, listen, I can give you guys all the goods, but if you don't make the choice and the decision to be your greatness, it's all for naught. Exactly, David, right? You've seen that shirt that I have, MD, Most Determined, right? It's permanently up on your whiteboard. That's exactly what it is. Is now you have to make sure that you are more determined. And as we talk about this, guys, there's 3 key things that I want you guys to do if you want to succeed. The very first thing, guys, is to take that responsibility. Not some responsibility. Take 110% responsibility. Think about what your mom was trying to teach you to do, to be an adult, to make wise decisions, to be a responsible adult. It's time for you to recognize you must create your future because nobody's going to give it to you. And if you are a student of color, and if this, I just saw I'm getting thumbs down now because I'm talking about color, right? It's like, well, okay, I'm talking about race and now I'm getting negative votes. I don't give a flip about your negative votes. It's okay. If you're a student of color out there, I'm talking to you right now. Recognize you have greatness inside you, but you must take responsibility and you must recognize that they don't want to see your black ass at their school. I'm just being honest with you. They don't think highly of you. They don't feel comfortable with you. So what you have to do is take it on yourself and say, listen, I'm not going to let their negative bias keep me out. I will prevail over it. I will do everything to the best of my ability. I want to be perfect, but I will perform to the best of my ability. I will not let myself down. I will not allow myself for even one moment, one day, 1 second to be less than what I could be. Not for 1 second. And can I sidetrack for 1 second? I know I'm trying to, I'll come back to it. We'll start there. I'm not gonna let myself be for 1 second, okay? No, I'm gonna tell you guys a story. You guys wanna have some story time? If you wanna have some story time right now, like the video, comment, let me know you wanna have some story time with me right now. You guys got a minute? Can we hang out a little bit longer? We're on here 31 minutes. Can I hang out for just a second longer and speak to you? Can we get at it? If I can, you guys let me know. Comment in the box. I'm at the end of my day, and the reason I started this was because I got an IGDM from one of my students say, listen, did you see that Supreme Court thing today? I want to hear your opinion and your opinion only. And I appreciate him sitting there because I was like, oh, I could comment on it, but I'm not really going to do it. And then I saw his problem, like, oh, you know what? There's some students out here who need a word today because that affected them. They recognize, ooh, that's scary to me. So the story I want to tell you guys is I talk about never letting yourself be less than your best. So I had an interesting childhood. My dad is different. He's a different cat. He's off. He's crazy, if you will. He's a self-proclaimed crazy. And when I was growing up, my dad, in his own way, was always trying to sharpen me, harden me, prepare me for what life in America as a black man is. And I appreciate him for that. I applaud him for that. And my mom, the same thing. And it was hilarious because I was at downtown Disney. I was having a Disney day with my kids and my wife. And my dad wanted to meet up. And my dad doesn't do Disneyland. He's not walking around the crowds and stuff. He doesn't do Disneyland anymore. And so we met him in downtown Disney. And we sat at this restaurant. And we're at this restaurant. And he's playing with my kids. And we're having fun, blah, blah, blah. And then my son Dre is telling him about his basketball game and how, yeah, it was a great game, but he didn't go as well as he wanted. And my dad was like, well, what went wrong? He's like, well, I didn't do my best. And he's like, okay, what did your dad say? He said, well, you didn't give your best, but just try harder next time. He's like, that's it? He's like, when your dad was a kid and he had a basketball game and he didn't give his best, you know what would happen? And my son said, no, what happened? And he goes, he would have to walk home. And my son's like, what? And he's like, yeah. He's like, and one time, he didn't perform well, and I told him, listen, since you didn't try hard out there on the court, you got extra energy, you go ahead and you run home. And I can remember it, and I was like, and my son was like shocked about this. He's like, yeah, he's like, and his mom didn't talk to me for 2 weeks after that. And he's like, what? Grandma didn't talk to you for 2 weeks? And he was like flabbergasted by this. But I can remember that still, this exact time he's talking about, I can remember it because the gym was over 3 miles from my house. And my dad, in his silver Camry, I can remember it, I was running down Lamson. It's in Anaheim. You guys look it up. I was running down Lamson back home on the sidewalk, and my dad is in his silver Camry holding up traffic in the right lane, driving, honking his horn, and yelling at me to run faster. And I'm jogging the 3+ miles to my house after this basketball game. I was probably like 10, 11, jogging home, and my dad's braiding me. And when we got home, he said, how do you feel now? And I said, I feel tired. He's like, after every single game, you should feel this tired. Because you should feel like you left it all out on the court. You gave everything you have. I said, he said, in this life, you can't afford to give less than 100%. And at the time, I was mad as all hell. I was so mad. And I didn't get it. I didn't grasp it. But as I got older, I recognized, holy smokes, he was right. And I embraced that. And that was one of the things that turned my whole freaking journey around. So I talk about in my Successful Student Mindset Makeover course, right? My 21-day Mindset Makeover, is that you have to recognize and ask yourself the key quintessential question: am I taking full responsibility, and am I holding myself to the highest of standards to give my best? Am I giving maximum effort? And for so many of you guys as students, you're not giving your maximum effort. You're giving excuses. And all those excuses are notching away at you giving 100%. And so when I got rid of the excuses, no excuses, and I told myself, no, I'm just going to be my best. I'm just going to dominate. I'm just going to give everything I got. It turns out that giving everything I got is just enough to be Stanford Med School, top of my class, top residency, amazing anesthesiologist, empowerer to students, all the things I wanted to be. But it took me taking that responsibility. And then I took that responsibility, and the first thing I did with it, y'all, is that I educated myself. And so for you guys as minority students, how do we overcome this getting rid of all this affirmative action related stuff? We take responsibility, and then we educate ourselves. Education, 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 education. If you aren't educated on the pathway, on the process for getting to medical school, you will never get there. I swear on everything. You'll never get there. If you walk around in the dark, you'll never get there. And the sad truth is minorities are less informed about the process than their non-minority counterparts. Why? Because we don't have the background. We don't have, right, the parent telling us what to do. We don't have the hookup. We don't have all that stuff. And so therefore, because you don't have the hookup, it's even more important that you are maximally informed, that you are getting every piece of information you can about the process, that you are learning how to study. Because if you get, we can only talk about the actual data. We can't talk about fairies and gumdrops. We have to talk about the actual data. The actual data shows that minority students are less academically prepared to succeed in college. Why is that a problem? Because as a pre-med, if you're trying to go to medical school, it can feel like you only have one shot. And when that freshman year starts of college and you come from high school and you're less academically prepared and you feel awkward because you're the only black person there, both the case for me, academically unprepared and feeling like I didn't belong because I'm the only black face, and you have a miserable freshman year, what happens is, with the lack of minority leadership, you get someone who's a non-minority telling you that you are in fact inferior, that you are in fact incapable, and that you should in fact switch out of pre-med and go do something else with your time. Like my college counselor told me. We have to prepare ourselves to be excellent. And that's the third thing you have to do, is you have to set your standard, guys, at excellent. You have to be exceptional or you will not be accepted. That is the truth. All of you guys who continue, and I've always said this, there's no change today as it was yesterday. Just because you're black, you will not get into medical school. In fact, the true data shows if you are black, you are less likely to get into medical school. So if you are black, you must be that much more exceptional, so exceptional, in fact, that you negate all the negative bias stacked against you. You have to be so exceptional that people can't help but be like, damn, this guy's the man. And I'm proud to say consistently that because I take responsibility, because I educate myself, I'm obsessive about understanding what it takes to succeed, and because I set my standard on excellence and exceptional, and I accept nothing less from myself, that my reputation, that my perceived excellence is on as Cardi B would say, on fleek. It's insane. That is my reputation. I have a reputation of excellence. I am the domination. I am the greatness you see in front of you. All right? You guys have seen me out of my events. I have a shirt that says Black Greatness is here, because everywhere I go, I spread black greatness, because it is me. Yes, I'm black. You see my skin. But I'm so great that the greatness oozes out of my pores and transcends my darkness. And so it's not being scared of his darkness. It's being excited by his excellence. That's the goal for all of you guys as minority students. How can you be so shiny in your accomplishments that it outshines your darkness? And if you can set that standard for yourself and you can work towards it, not being perfect, but if you can work towards it a little bit every day, getting better, getting stronger, beefing up your chops to be ready for the opportunity, when the opportunity arises, damn, y'all, you'll be unstoppable. That's the truth, and that's the takeaway from today. Is don't feel hopeless. Yes, this is a big blow, but don't let it hold you back. Instead, rise above it. Recognize you have the power to remove all restraints. Nothing can hold you back. But you got to go get it, because it's not going to be given to you. It wasn't going to be given to you last week, and it ain't going to be given to you today especially. So recognize you got to step up for your greatness, and recognize that while you're fighting for yourself, you're also fighting for other students. And it's one of the things that motivated me as I went through my journey was I was thinking about the example, the pathway I was blazing for my future children, who are, like I said, now legacies at Stanford. The legacy that I was blazing for other minority students as I uplift, right? Like now I have, like this past cycle, I have all these minority students who are in great top-notch residencies, not HBCU residencies, that are in UCSF, at Stanford, at UCLA, at Kaiser, at all these great top-notch, at Brigham and Women's, all these great top-level, predominantly white institutions, and they're carrying on that legacy of empowering, of blazing a path, of becoming leaders to create opportunities for that next generation. And that's what it's about, y'all. So it's not just for you, it's for your family, and it's for any dark-skinned character coming behind you that can look to you and that you can say, this is the way to do it. Be the excellence. Step up for yourself, all right? That's all I got for tonight, guys. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me as I talked here for 41 minutes and some change. I'm going to be back. I'm back now. Should I come back? I'm back now on YouTube a little bit more because I feel like I said, I'm only here to bring positivity and productivity. And I have to step away from social media from time to time because I feel like it's nothing but a bunch of attention. Can I say that out loud? Nothing but a bunch of attention whores on this here internet who want to distract you, who want to show you shiny things so that you don't focus on fixing the dirty things in your life. And I have to sometimes, like, it's a battle to not, I don't want to contribute to your distraction. I don't want you to get on here, hear my words, feel good, and then not go work. At all times, positivity, but the productivity has to follow, y'all. Get to work. Do your stuff. Elevate yourself. Improve yourself. Because I can't do it for you. Nobody can do it for you. But you can do it for you. And you can do it incredibly, guys. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. Take a second, like the video, share this video. Give that positive, that productivity to other students out there who might be feeling away today. Okay? Have a wonderful, wonderful evening here. And I'll see you guys next time. I'm Dr. Andre Pinesett. And I'm here, as always, for positivity, productivity, and to instill in you guys, it's no excuses, just dominate, y'all. Put that in the box, as a matter of fact. Let's let that fill up this box so people can see it's no excuses. It's no excuses. It's just dominate, y'all. So everybody have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.